Hello and welcome back to Pay Down Debt Solutions. I'm Jen, and on this channel, we teach you how to be debt-free much faster using Velocity Banking. Today, I want to go over with you the 3 steps to getting you debt-free much faster than you're currently doing today. We are going to go over how to do this Velocity Banking principles and this Velocity Banking strategy using lines of credit and also credit card lines, okay? So a credit card is a line of credit. Most people don't know that, but that's exactly what it is. So we are also then going to take a scenario here and we're going to work it through. And I'm going to show you an apples to apples comparison on the interest rates using lines of credit and using credit cards and how one works a little bit faster than the other. You're going to win with both no matter what you do. You're going to win using either one. But I'm going to show you how a line of credit, even a small one, can actually get your job done faster, okay? But let's go into the principles of Velocity Banking and the principles that Pay Down teaches, which is our 3-step strategy, right? It is to organize, identify, and implement your strategy once you learn how to do Velocity Banking. And quickly, let me introduce myself again. I am Jen. And what qualifies me to teach you any of this, right? So that's the question that we get a lot of times. People want to know how we know anything about this, okay? So Dan is my husband. He also runs Velocity Banking scenarios for you. So what makes us any more special than anybody else out there teaching Velocity Banking? Well, number one, Dan is a math whiz. Just kidding. I mean, not kidding that he's a math whiz. He really is. But my joke is, Dan is a business owner, just as I am a business owner. And we found ourselves in a boatload of debt a few years ago, right? And so we were in lots of debt using our credit cards and loans, trying to, figure out these businesses that we had and float them and try to figure out how we were going to, make money and then pay back all of these payments that we have, okay? So were the businesses making money? Heck yes, they were making money, but we had payments just like all of you, right? We had payments. And so when you are in the traditional banking setting, you are payment poor. You can't help it, right? You're taught one way, and that is the traditional banking way. So you find yourself very payment poor, and that is exactly the position that we are in. Now, we both come from corporate America. So Dan's a mechanical engineer. He came from the car companies and ended up running his own businesses, right? And he started as a kid running businesses. So he started a boat restoration company when he was younger. And so then I have been in corporate America too, right? So I was in corporate America as a banker and as a branch manager. So why am I qualified to teach this to you? Because I didn't know what you guys don't know as a banker and as a branch manager. But there is this wonderful thing called Velocity Banking using lines of credit that can help you get out of debt much faster. Now, as a branch manager, I taught everybody to do the exact same things that you guys are doing every single day with your finances. You're putting money into a checking account and you are paying your bills out of that checking account. And if there's anything left over at the end of the day, well, guess what you're doing? You're hoping to throw that in a savings account, only to then need that the following month or the month after that or the month after that to pay for the what if things that happen, the oh shiznit moments in life, right? Because we all know they happen. They happen, at least monthly, if not every other day. And when you have, horses and dogs and cats and all the stuff that we have here, it happens pretty much on a daily basis. So, somebody needs something always, right? So you guys find yourself in that position just like we did, do, and are finding ourselves in that position. But the difference is we learned a new skill. We learned Velocity Banking, and I learned Velocity Banking, and I understand the tools that at the bank, right? I understand the lines of credit. I understand the credit card lines, and I knew how they worked, but what I didn't know was how to run them a special way to make them work and accelerate your debt freedom, okay? So that's what I'm going to teach you guys today is how to accelerate your debt freedom. And I want to kind of clarify a little bit the difference between a regular line of credit, like a personal line of credit, a home equity line of credit, or even a business line of credit, versus the credit card. Now, they're very similar in the fact that they're revolving lines. So what is a revolving line? Well, a revolving line is any kind of instrument, okay, that you can put money in and get money out on a consistent basis. It's not closed-ended, right? So a loan, on the other hand, is closed-ended. That means that when you have a car loan, let's say, and you make your monthly payment, if it's $320, like it is in my example, if it's 320 bucks, I go and I make a payment to my car loan. And let's say, shoot, I need to buy groceries and I don't have any more money to my name. You know what? I'm going to go and get that money back from my auto loan and use it, right? Wrong, obviously not, right? You guys are laughing because it's ridiculous, because they won't let you. They'd slap your hand and tell you no, right? They won't let you do it. So the difference is, when you have lines of credit, you can actually charge something using your credit card, right? Or sometimes they have a credit card attached to them. Credit cards obviously have a piece of plastic attached to them. Lines of credit sometimes have a piece of plastic attached to them. So you can make that charge, or you can, make a debit through your debit card, through your checking account, and those lines are attached to your checking account, some of them. And then you can get money back out. So if you go to make your auto payment and you realize, shoot, I don't have any money for groceries, guess what? You can just go to that line of credit, swipe your card, or pull money out of the bank and pay for your groceries, right? So that is what is beautiful about these lines of credit, aside from the other fact that they are calculated on an average daily balance and not an amortized schedule, such as your loans are. Amortized loans, okay, which almost all loans are. Loans are amortized, meaning that they're front end loaded. So all of your interest, the biggest chunk of the interest payments, are always paid up front, and they reduce as the loan goes down, right? So the biggest interest you're going to pay is always up front. So even if you were to put in your payment, most of that payment in the beginning of a loan is going all towards interest, okay? It's not balanced. What I love about the lines of credit, it is more balanced, because whatever the percentage is the percentage, okay? And it keeps dropping as the line of credit keeps dropping. So it changes with the line instead of holds, kind of static, right? With that all front end loaded, like the loans are front end loaded. Well, lines of credit aren't. The interest rate is what it is as that line is presented, okay? So it's always the same percent. So we will get into that, and I want to do an apples to apples comparison on the lines of credit, the two different lines that there are. And of course, there's credit cards and the lines of credit, such as the PLOC, HELOC, and VLOC. All right. But the first thing I want to do is talk to you guys about how to organize your debt, because organizing your debt is the most important thing you're going to do, okay? So the three-step strategy, the three-step system that we have with Pay Down Debt Solutions, okay? Pay Down Debt Solutions is all about how to help you guys save money, okay? And we do that through our 3 steps. And that is to organize, it is to identify, and then it is to implement your strategy, which you will be learning. Now, a side note here, we have a workshop coming up. We have one on the 20th, it's full. We've got one on the 26th. There's a couple spots left. If you guys want to get in on our workshop, where you're bringing your own numbers to the table and we help you work a plan, okay? We help you identify and implement, all right? It's up to you to do the organization piece, which you just are going to get sheets from us. We're going to send you the sheets if you're interested in the workshop. We send you the sheets, you send them back so we can review them. And then on that day, which is it's the 27th. I said 26th. I'm wrong. It's the 27th. The 27th is a Sunday. So it's on the 27th. And what you do is you're going to get the worksheets from us. We will send them to you. You then fill them out. And Dan will be doing a video on showing you guys how to fill those out too. You're going to fill out those worksheets, and then you're going to send them back to us, okay, so we can review them before we have the workshop, all right? So we like to do that so that we have an idea of where each of you are at. And again, it's a smaller group. We like to keep them small so we can make it valuable to you, so we can help you begin your strategy. All right, so again, our 3 steps, right? So this is the pay down way. So pay down 3 steps, all right. So let's put an S on that. So pay down's 3 steps is number 1, you're going to organize your bills. So what does that mean? That means that you are going to know everything that comes into your household, okay, and everything that goes out. That means you're going to organize all of your debts. So every single one, down to the piddly little subscriptions that you might have. You're going to organize your income. You're going to list all of your income for yourself. You are even going to list your assets that you have, okay? So if you have a 401k or you have an IRA out there, we like that you guys list those, because if push comes to shove and we need to use some of that money to pay down your debts, I have gone over these in other videos. It makes sense sometimes, you guys, to go ahead and dip into your IRAs or 401ks perhaps even, to get yourself out of these 27% interest rates out there, right? So if you're bleeding 27% interest, 15% interest, 32% interest, and yet in the market, you're making 10%, you tell me what makes sense, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to stop the loss, and then whatever money's left over, you then, number one, you're going to, have more wealth, and you're going to accumulate more wealth because you're going to be stopping the amount of money that you're spending every month on all these payments, right? Because you're going to pay them off and you're going to have this extra cash flow that you can then invest or do whatever you want with, okay? So sometimes it does make more sense, but we also understand that there's a comfort level, and we get that. So if you need that comfort level and you need that cushion, we'll allow you to have it, right? Of course, it's your prerogative, it's your finances. However, we just want you to understand that there are times when it does make sense. And I know your financial advisors out there are going to freak out, right? They always do. But it does make more sense in a lot of cases to go ahead and pay the debts you owe so you can then continue to build wealth. All right. Sorry, tangent. I get it. All right. So we're going to organize. We're going to organize all of your debts, right? So all of them, all debts. Okay, so all debts here and all of your income. And then here, even savings, right? So savings too. All right, so whatever you have in savings. All right, so then identify. So what do we mean by identify? Well, you're going to be identifying your strategy and your debt destroyer, okay? So when we talk about a DD, okay, so we have a DD here, and that equals debt destroyer. Okay, so debt destroyer. Now, what are those? Well, they are these. They are your lines of credit and your credit cards. Those are your debt destroyers, all right? So typically we pick one debt destroyer a lot of times in our workshops. Sometimes we will run a split card strategy. Sometimes, not always though, because we go after interest for you. What we're trying to get back for you is interest and save you interest, all right? That is our biggest, that is our task. That is what we're tasked with when you guys come to us with either a one-on-one coaching plan, or when you're in our workshops, we're trying to get you guys back the interest so that you're saving and you're not bleeding all this money at the end of the day, okay? So the debt destroyers are your lines of credit, okay? Lines of credit, again, because you can put your income into them, you can run expenses out, and you can go back and get more income if you need it, right? Or not necessarily income, but you can go get money from that line of credit if you need it and start the cycle over if you have no other place to go, right? Or you're in between paychecks or whatever. So lines of credit are a place to go for cash, all right, or for money. Now, you're going to be, like I said, identifying, and again, that is using that debt destroyer, identifying that debt destroyer there, whichever line of credit that is going to be, and then you're going to be identifying what strategy. Now, the strategies, like I said, it could be you're a split card maybe. Okay, so maybe it's a split card strategy. Maybe it is using one credit card, okay? Maybe you're going to use one credit card. Or maybe, just maybe, you have a PLOC out there or a home equity line of credit, and that will be your strategy. Okay, so PLOC, or maybe it's a HELOC, right? And HELOC stands for home equity line of credit. PLOC stands for personal line of credit. And we love those because typically these are assigned a lower interest rate, okay? Now, why are they assigned a lower interest rate? Well, the HELOC is assigned a lower interest rate because it is secured by an asset. What is that asset? That is, of course, your home. So your home then will allow you to have a lower interest rate, okay? And HELOCs are typically even lower than your personal lines of credit, okay? Personal lines of credit are a loan on a handshake, right? So a lot of times when they talk about a handshake loan, that's what they mean, but this is all a handshake line of credit. So it's backed by your good name, okay? So it's backed by your good name. And if you are a good risk, meaning that your credit score is fairly decent, like 680 or above-ish, right? Then they're going to give you a personal line of credit. The better your credit score, the lower the rate is going to be for you, okay? So they will assign you that. Now, Then it comes to implementing, right? So you're going to then implement, all right? So we've organized our bills, right? So we've organized everything that's coming into our household, everything that's going out of our household. We know what's happening in our financial picture. Some of you might be using our budget sheets, right? Our budget strategy. And so you have a really good idea each week what's happening. And so you're going to know this because you've organized, and trust me, you're going to pare down some things that you don't need based on the fact that you have all this stuff going out, and you're going to say, I don't need this. And you're going to, get rid of some stuff. So you will find some cash in the process. Now, you have then done step 2, which is identifying that debt destroyer. And now you're identifying which plan you're going to use, right? Whether it's the split card, whether it's the PLOC or the HELOC, or maybe even you just want to work your mortgage down. Maybe that's all you want to do is work that mortgage down. So it's going to be which tool you're going to use to slap down chunks on that mortgage and run velocity banking through it, okay? Again, income in, expenses out. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to implement that strategy. So what is implementing your strategy? Well, it's your work down, right? It is your working down your strategy. So here's just a quick example. If we have a 14,200, okay, is my debt destroyer, okay? So if that's my debt destroyer, and let's say my income is 4,000, right? So if my income is 4,000, I'm going to be subtracting 4,000, if this is a personal line of credit, right, from this original line of credit. So income in, so right, my income comes into this line, and it drops me immediately to what? So 10,200, right? So now I have gone from, if it's in this case 27%, if I've gone from 27% at the 14,200 at 27% versus the 10,200 at the 27%. Well, what's the difference there? Okay. So this is again why velocity banking is pretty amazing, because if I take 14,200, right, and I multiply it by 0.27, that means that for the year I'm spending, okay, in total interest, 38.34. Okay, so that would be my year's worth of interest. So let me write that down. So in 1 year, for this dollar amount, I'm spending, what was it? 38.34, right? 38.34 in interest. Okay, this is 1 year, 1 year of interest. But now let's say we then put our $4,000 in. We drop it down to 10,200, right? So what is that? So 10,200 times 0.27 is 27.54. Well, obviously it's less, Jen, right? Because the dollar amount is different, correct? Correct. So this is 27.54. Now, this is an entire year's worth of interest though, okay? But here's what velocity banking does for you, right? This is why it works. Now, when you do this, you take your 14,000 and you put your $4,000 of income in and you drop it to 10,200. You are actually paying on an average, okay? Because what happens is we are going to be spending money out of this card or this line of credit, right? Because we have to run our expenses through it still. So we put all of our income in, and if we do that, obviously we have to have a place to go for the expenses, right? So that's what we do, is we drop it with velocity banking down to the lowest point by putting our income in. And then we're going to be spending on that debt weapon, that debt destroyer each month, right? We're going to spend we're going to put our living expenses on it, for example, right? So our living expenses are going to come off of that. So it's going to not end up here, right? This is where the lowest point it's ever going to be. But then maybe with our expenses, maybe it comes back up to, let's say, 13,000, right? So that becomes more of, so we have to take an average is really what we have to do, right? So if we take the 14,000 and we add it to the 10,200, so 14.2, right? Whoops, let me do this right. 14.2 plus our 10,200 equals, well, that's 24,400, but then we're going to divide that by 2 to get an average, which is 12,000, what is that? 12,200. So that's our average, okay? So even if we brought it back up to the 13, let's say, we're still going to average this out, okay? We're still going to average it out. So now my interest on 12,000, right, 12,200, okay, multiplied by 0.27, okay, to get my interest rate on that is 32.94, okay? So this is reasonably what I'm going to spend per year. I'm not going to spend the low point, which is 27.54. I'm not going to spend the high point, which is 38.34. It's going to be more like 32.94. And then if I divide that by 12, that means I'm spending $274 a month. Okay, that would be $274 a month for this. Okay, that's what I would be paying in interest each month. But we know that as we run the velocity banking strategy, it is not going to remain this, right? It is going to continue to go down because we are taking the cash that we are getting back to us, right? Whoops, sorry, right here. We're taking this and we're putting it back into what we owe. And it's going to quickly hammer down our debt. So let me get into then for you the explanation again of lines of credit versus credit cards and how the two are separate. I'm going to run an apples to apples comparison for you so you can see this, okay? So you can see this comparison. And then we're going to say, which one are we going to use, right? Or which one are we going to work towards when we decide how we're going to, what we're going to be using as our debt destroyer. Sometimes we use one debt destroyer, but we're working towards another. So if I'm using a credit card and I decide I want to use a line of credit, I might have to fix my credit a little bit. And how do I do that? By running a velocity banking strategy, of course, because as I'm doing this, I'm continuing to drop my balances, which is going to increase my credit score, okay? And this is what we do. So let me clear the board and let's go and do our apples to apples comparison for you. Back with some numbers so you can see the apples to apples comparison. So I had to do a little correction for you because I realized down here I pulled in my 1620, which I didn't need to do, and I will explain that in just a minute, okay? So we know that we have an income of $3,800. We have total expenses of $3,600, all right? Which means we have a cash flow of $200. Now, our mortgage is $1,300. Our car payment is $320, which means $1,620 total between the mortgage and the car. Now, if we're running this credit card here, okay, and it's $14,200, all right, and we know the payment is $380 a month at a 27% interest rate. That means it takes 7 years, okay, and $17,181 in interest to term this out. Now, you guys are all taught through the traditional banking system. This is what you guys are doing currently. You are making your payment. It's taking you 7 years and you're spending $17,181. And you don't even know it because nobody bothers to really calculate it or look at it. So you have no idea that this is what's happening to you, okay? Now, I want to compare apples to apples again. So we are going to split this out into our credit card facts, and we're going to split it out into our line facts, okay? So our credit card facts and our line facts. Remember, I had to do a correction here, so the numbers look different than they did a little bit earlier. So what I had done is I put the 1620 down here, and I didn't need to, obviously, right? Because, and this is a great explanation for you, because, right, if my expenses, and I need my equal sign here, if my expenses are $3,600, right, $3,600 right here, and I subtract out the credit card payment, or the line payment, I should say, because remember we put it into a line. We have to subtract out the line payment because we no longer owe it. That comes back to us, okay? So that line of credit, whatever the interest rate is on that line of credit, okay, is usually, lines of credit a lot of times are calculated based on just that interest rate. And if not, even if they have a payment, we know we're putting a heck of a lot more of our income onto it. So then it's going to make that payment null and void, okay? So it doesn't matter. So that 380 comes back to us, which means that we're spending $3,220 as our expenses instead of what we pay over here, the $1,600. Okay, so $3,220 are then our total expenses, getting this back to us. All right. So if you take and look at this over here, then Again, apples to apples. I'm saying that this line of credit is at a 27%. We know that PLOCs are less. We know that HELOCs are much less, okay? So they're going to be more like 13%, but I want that apples to apples comparison. So when we do this, again, we're starting at the $14,200. We're subtracting out our total income of $3,800, which drops us to the 10,400, okay? So the 10,400. And then we're going to be putting back in our expenses, because our expenses are coming out monthly, right? They're coming out each month. So we are paying for our expenses. All right. We are paying our interest rate, which is calculated at the 27%. So that's 276. And it drops us to the 13,896. Okay. And we can see this is less than this over here if you were to do that comparison. All right. So then our income comes in again, right? Our income comes in again of the 3,800, drops us to 10,096. And as you can see, it's less than this one here, right? Obviously, because we're putting more income in. And so then our expenses come out and our interest comes out, and you can see the difference here again in the interest. And we are now at $13,585. So we do our checks, right? Is this less than this? It is. Is this less than this? And it is. So what happens? How does this all shake out in the end, right? So if we were to do it on a credit card with our expenses being as is, and if we were to do it on our line of credit with our expenses being, obviously we're paying our total expenses, but this comes back to us, this comes back to us, right? So we subtract the 36, we subtract it from the 380, or other way around. And so then we end up with 3220, right? Okay, so here's what happens in the end. If you take your credit card, all right, so let me get my card number here. Okay, so this is going to take 30 months, all right? So it's going to take 30 months, sorry. And it is going to cost us $5,350, okay? So $5,350 versus $17,181, all right, to run it on a credit card, okay, to run it on a credit card. Now, if we run it on a PLOC, a BLOC, a HELOC, right, if we run it on any of those, what does it cost us? Well, it takes us then 26 months, all right, and we're spending $4,501, okay, so $4,501, all right? So you can see, you guys, either way, even though this is more, we still win when we use a line of credit, okay? So when we use a line of credit, either one, the credit card or line of credit, they're all lines of credit. It's just one is specified a credit card and one is specified a HELOC, PLOC, or BLOC. And again, the difference there is what we then have to hold out into our checking account or what we do not, okay? So you're saving here. You're saving yourself time. You're also saving yourself money. Now, a true comparison, okay? Now, again, this is at 27%, but a true comparison would put this at about 13%, okay? So if it's at 13%, what is the difference then? Well, you're saving a lot more time and you're saving some more money, right? And by some more money, it's going to be a lot more money. So if we run this at 13%, okay, which is again what that HELOC, or well, more like a personal line, the HELOC should be less even. Okay, so if we run it at a personal line, it would be then 21 months. Okay, so 21 months. And it's going to cost us $1,696. So I ask you again, why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you? You know how to do this now, okay? You know how to do this now. And again, when people say, oh my gosh, you should never put your debt on your home, you should never use equity that way. Why? It's sitting there doing nothing for you. Use it, right? I say use it, because this, to me, is all I need to know. I don't care what my equity is in the home at that point. I don't care if people think I'm using it and putting debts on it. So be it. Because I'm saving myself a whole lot of money in the end. And look, it's costing me 21 months. I think I can do that, right? I think I have 21 months worth of time. Well, at least I hope I do, right? Because the only thing we know in life that are sure are death and taxes, right? So we know at some point I'm not going to be here. But I'm hoping that I'll make it through 21 months, okay? I'm hoping that I do. So you guys, again, just a reiteration, our workshop, the next one is on the 27th. I'm sorry, I said the 26th earlier, is the 27th of July. And if you want to get in, there's a couple spots left. Again, you're going to be running your own worksheets. We're going to be reviewing them. We're going to help you work those out. We're going to be answering questions, and it should be a really good time, right? They always are. We always enjoy them. We really enjoy you. So I hope you've learned something today. I hope you learned the difference between lines of credit and credit card lines, right? Both are lines. They're just a little bit different when it comes to, what you have to hold out and what you and what your chargeable expenses are that way. And again, your income, you're using all of the income in your PLOC, BLOC, or HELOC. And the expenses, right? It's going to still be the expenses are running through. You're just subtracting out whatever you've rolled in. Okay, those payments then are coming back to you. And I apologize for the numbers earlier. I don't know what I was thinking. Again, I am not perfect. So, sometimes after, when you run these things for a while, you kind of, you'll forget, or you'll bring numbers over and then you're like, shoot, I wasn't supposed to do that. So just so you know, I am very human, right? I make mistakes, but I've corrected them, and I wanted to show you how incredibly powerful and impactful these are. Apples to apples, you're still saving. They're still both awesome. They're still both relevant. This one, obviously, you're saving more, and you're saving more. Again, it comes down to that interest rate. Have an excellent day, you guys. I hope you've learned something, and I hope to see you in the next video.